Hey guys, it's Brian from XS MotorWorks and welcome back to my shop. So it is going to be episode number 8. Running out of fingers. So in my project Mini Split Decision, which is my hybrid go-kart, cross-kart, not exactly sure what, some kind of little kart, 2/3 scale of my supercar that I'm building. So in the last episode, you saw me build these axles. Well, I went ahead and put a little shrink wrap on the axles and filled up the CV with grease. And so this guy's ready to go. And one thing I'm going to point out here is, you see, this is where the caliper normally works. I'm actually using this, like I said, as a toe control. The problem is I couldn't really get a caliper there anyway because the rotors are actually just going to be a little too big for those 12-inch tires. So what I'm going to do is show you how I'm going to add brakes to this kart. So let's go ahead and get started. Quick review. So we've got our Honda CR-V diff in here. This has a limited slip differential installed, one of those cheap limited slip differentials. And I went ahead and added this can. It's just an aluminum can that I put over the whole assembly. It has been sealed up with aluminum plate on this side. So, and that is filled with grease. So we're ready to go as far as the differential goes. So now we got to add brakes. And as I've alluded to, brakes can only live right in here. Because past that is actually where the axle is. So let's go ahead and get a little bit better look at that. So if this is where the brake has to live, that means it has to go on to the actual hub itself. Originally I thought I could actually just leave it in this first position. I actually milled this down just a little bit so that brake rotor would fit on there. And when I did that and slid it all the way on, it actually ends up right up against the actual mount point right here. So that's not going to work. So plan 2 then is I've got to get this brake rotor all the way over to here. So I've already machined this down as much as I feel comfortable machining it down. It had a few raised spots. I actually just barely got on those raised spots. If you look right there, you can actually see there's actually still a little bit of remnants of the valley, and this is where the raised spot would have been. So I machined just as minimal as I could off of this Honda CR-V CV joint. And now what I've got to do is actually open this up. Like I was saying, I need to get that mounted to this. And I need to do so with it remaining concentric like it is right now, which means that it has to rotate perfectly around the axis of this collar right here. So as you can see right now, that's not a good angle. So as you can see right now, it doesn't go up and down, it rotates round and round. Unfortunately, this actually is too big for my little mini lathe, and so that means I'm going to actually have to do a secondary step to actually be able to use the mini lathe to get that in a perfect concentric. Really, I'm not worried about this concentric, but I actually need to make the mounting bracket perfectly concentric. So to do that, I was digging around in the scrap pile, and I happened to find this circle that I'm going to use for an actual jig. So I've started making my little jig here. Fly through the air. Anyway, so this was just a piece of leftover scrap I had, and what I've done is drilled fairly close to the center. It doesn't have to be the perfect center just yet, because I'm going to lay this down and make this perfectly circular. And then in this circle out here will be concentric to this rod, which then will allow me to place the drill, or the actual spots where I need to drill for the bolts. So I'll show you that coming up. So first step is go ahead and get this laid down so it's perfectly circular. So as you see, now this is a perfect circle. Now it's laid, you can see the edge there. So what I can use is the fact that this is a perfect circle, and that perfect circle is concentric to this perfect circle. I can align this on this plate. So what I'm going to do is measure multiple points and get to where those bolt holes need to be perfectly aligned. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll go ahead and drill. Well, actually what I'll do is I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'll mark this up, and then I'll scribe a line using the lathe again to make sure that that's a circular pattern and drill those holes out. So hold on just a second. Let me go ahead and measure this, and we'll get to it. So now you see that scribed line there. That scribed line is concentric around this scribed line, and which means that it's going to be our guide. If you look there, how they all line up. Now I have a nice little template. Basically, just drill out those holes, and I will be perfectly concentric around the center, and then I'll actually make a plate to actually weld up. So let's go ahead and drill it out. The jig is actually on the rotor, and we know now it's perfectly, well, can't really hold it, but it is perfectly centered. So that's the jig. Now what I got to do is make the bracket that's also going to bolt onto here and actually machine that. All right, so here's the jig, and this is going to be the actual bracket. So what I've done is basically drilled a hole in the center just so that would clear. This is not perfectly round. Doesn't need to be just yet. It's going to go on the mini lathe to make it perfectly round. And basically that just lines up with all those holes. Like that. You can kind of see. So now what I've got to do is actually make this perfectly round. Both on the outside and on the inside. To do that, I'm going to use the mini lathe again. So I was able to successfully make a mounting bracket. Here's the jig, and here's the bracket that came off of it. So the important part is that this is concentric circle around these bolts here, so they're actually perfectly aligned, which allows me now to slide this bracket onto the hub all the way past the original area. So what I've got to do next is actually weld this bracket onto the hub. What I've gone ahead and done is I've actually opened up this one brake rotor. You can see that's a nice pretty hole. That's kind of a jagged hole. This hole doesn't have to be circular anymore, because really what I'm concerned about is this bolt pattern on the outside. So that bolt pattern lines up with that bolt pattern, and now that allows us to actually merge everything up. So what I'll do here is I'll actually bolt everything together, and that's going to allow for that shoulder to be used on the hub. Get on there. So normally this rotor gets stuck right there. The new rotor that's been opened up goes on farther. So if I place all this together, that's going to create that gap that I wanted when I slide this in. I don't need a lot of a gap, but it'll create that basically a rotor's worth of, I think that's, I don't even know how much it is, but it's a rotor's worth of gap in the process. So I'll go ahead and weld this now, and then we'll go ahead and test it on the cart and see what it looks like. So there it is, all welded up. You can see I actually went ahead and welded the bolts into the actual bracket itself, and those are the two discs, so that one disc can, actually both discs will come off, and you throw a coat of paint on it, it ends up looking like this little guy right here. So basically, let's go ahead and get this all bolted up and test it out, see how things look. Yes! Success! So the major milestone here, most of the fabrication is now complete. At least most of the major fabrication is complete. I actually have not made the bracket to mount the caliper, but I'm just going to do that off camera. It's really pretty straightforward. Make a bracket, weld it in, stick it on, be done with it. So as you can see now, everything spins. So actually, let's see if I spin it real fast. And it's hard to see. Limited slip is working. Just see back to the other video, you can actually see the limited slip engaged. So now I think it's actually a great time to go ahead and fire this kart up, and let's see what it sounds like, see what happens here. So hold on just a second. Oh, you need to remove the cover there. Carburation. Alright, that's pretty cool, if I do say so myself. Hey, so I think that's actually a great stopping point for this video. I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, make a bracket, get these things stuck on here. And in the next video, I don't know, we'll probably do some test drives around the yard here if it's not raining. Or I might be... There we go, hold on. There you go. Installing this. So this is 88 horsepower and 120 foot-pounds of torque. That means that this go-kart is going to have over 200 horsepower and 170 foot-pounds of torque. It'll probably do a wheelie. I don't know. If the tires hook up, I guess it probably will. It's really not that big. You can see it's pretty skinny. I've already test fitted. Actually, let's go ahead and put it up here. You can see where it's going to go. It's 44 pounds, so it's a little heavy, but not terrible. And it's going to live roughly right about there and attached to this jack shaft right here. So you get the basic idea. Just need to make a bracket for this and have it mounted up here. Obviously, it's not the best design with center of gravity, but that's what I got to work with, dealing with a 2/3 scale kart. Should have never done that in the first place. But anyway, so if you stayed with me for this long, I really appreciate you taking the time and watching my videos. And as always, from me, hey, and Dead Bob here, thanks for watching.